It is a Pandora's box in a way. Yeah, sure. Because basically, if you go, as my books show, if you go as deep as I went in writing those two books, and you could certainly go deeper, it basically shows that, the world is basically run by a meta cartel.
What many believed was a sealed chapter in history has erupted again. The story surrounding Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein was assumed to be buried beneath court transcripts and redactions. Instead, the latest disclosures have reignited scrutiny, pulling well-known figures back into public debate. A resurfaced allegation claims Maxwell once attempted to draw a teenage Paris Hilton into Epstein's orbit, an assertion Hilton has firmly rejected, calling herself an easy headline rather than a participant. Meanwhile, newly released records have only deepened uncertainty rather than resolved it. One widely circulated image from September 18, 2000, captures Hilton alongside Maxwell and Donald Trump at a New York fashion event connected to On & John. Years later, in 2008, Epstein negotiated a controversial plea agreement that resulted in a 13-month sentence under a work release setup.
The Justice Department has finally released some of the highly anticipated Epstein files. More than 300,000 pages of documents related to the late convicted offender were made public today. They include photos, flight logs, grand jury testimony, and a lot of heavy redacted.
2025, political battles over transparency intensified, with officials maintaining that no definitive client list exists even as waves of documents were released, then paused for further examination. Each disclosure seems fragmented, delayed, or partially obscured, fueling suspicion rather than closure. What was once framed as an old criminal case now feels like an ongoing power struggle over information. The narrative is no longer about past misconduct alone. It is about who controls the story and whose reputations may yet be shaken. The rupture deepens when you trace the rollout itself. The United States Department of Justice announces the publication of more than 3 million pages, thousands of recordings, and a vast archive of images connected to the investigation, then abruptly suspends further disclosure pending review. Momentum surges, stalls, and recalibrates. In November 2025, Congress advances the Epstein Files Transparency Act, promising structured access to sealed material. Weeks later, a tranche appears online, only for officials to request additional time. Earlier that year, the Attorney General publicly suggests that a client registry exists. By July 7th, the department reverses course, asserting no such list was ever maintained and confirming that no further releases are planned. The reversal ricochets across Capitol Hill. Observers describe a sequence that feels cyclical: assurance, partial exposure, suspension, contradiction. Procedurally, each step is framed as compliance and caution. Publicly, the oscillation breeds mistrust. With every interruption, speculation compounds. Within that atmosphere, archive narratives reignite. The 2020
Some breaking news right now. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life while he was behind bars here in New York City. Epstein was facing trafficking charges.
Netflix series Jeffrey Epstein. Filthy Rich resurfaces in feeds and comment threads as though newly premiered. Composer Christopher Mason recalls a social gathering where Ghislaine Maxwell allegedly surveyed attendees and remarked that Paris Hilton would be perfect for Jeffrey Epstein. Hilton, now in her 40s, responds in a recent interview with The Times, stating she does not remember Maxwell and characterizing herself as an easy headline. Parallel to that denial stands a documented image from September 18, 2000, captured at a New York fashion event linked to On & John. In the photograph, Hilton appears beside Maxwell and Donald Trump. The timestamp, venue, and guest list are verifiable. Interpretation, however, diverges. For some, it reflects the ambient glamour of an early 2000s social circuit. For others, it signals adjacency to power. The allegation of recruitment and confirmed moment of shared space coexist without converging. Between assertion and documentation lies an expanding silence, and in that silence, conjecture amplifies. For those who argue the controversy is sealed in the past, the chronology complicates that claim. In 2008, Jeffrey Epstein pleads guilty in Florida to state charges involving solicitation of a minor and serves 13 months. much of it under a documented work release arrangement. That agreement is part of the public record, not conjecture. In 2009, a civil lawsuit filed by one of his accusers alleges trafficking to figures described broadly as royalty, politicians, academics, and business leaders. Specific identities are not enumerated, but the classifications are explicit. A decade later, on July 6th,
we've seen dozens of new photos we haven't seen before of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell with very high-profile people, celebrities, people like Mick Jagger and Michael Jackson, like you showed, also like British royalty and actors. All of that we sort of knew was happening. I want to highlight specifically two for the public interest, and that is President Clinton and President
2019. Federal prosecutors in New York arrest Epstein on sex trafficking charges tied to conduct between 2002 and 2005. On August 10, 2019, he is found unresponsive in a Manhattan detention facility. Authorities rule the death a suicide. 3 weeks afterward, the criminal case is formally dismissed. Those dates are fixed markers. What evolve around them are associations, correspondence, travel records, and social images, some predating 2008, others extending beyond it. When disclosures resume in late 2025, the material does not present as a singular expose. Instead, it resembles a catalog of proximity. An Associated Press overview notes that Prince Andrew appears repeatedly in correspondence, referencing social invitations and gatherings. It also cites photographs and emails placing him in social settings where Ghislaine Maxwell is present. Bill Clinton is mentioned in connection with images and travel logs from philanthropic trips. Entertainers including Michael Jackson and Mick Jagger appear in social photographs from the era. Comedian Chris Tucker is listed in flight manifests and event snapshots. None of these references arrive attached to criminal charges within the release material. They surface instead as fragments, emails without full threads, images without complete narratives, travel entries without contextual detail. The absence of connective explanation intensifies public reaction. Public relations teams respond with statements emphasizing limited interaction, large group environments, or charitable travel. The phrasing often converges: brief acquaintance, no knowledge of misconduct, routine social contact. As similar language proliferates, observers interpret either strategic coordination.
News is breaking right now from the New York Times on Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. They think they've got him this time. They've really got him this time. Here are some highlights. Hold on a second. My team's sending me the name of the article. It's Don's Best Friend: How Epstein and Trump Bonded Over the Pursuit of Women. And left-wing X is going nuts over what's in this.
Or standard crisis management. The documents continue to enumerate associations without conclusively defining them. That gap between documented presence and proven conduct is where debate accelerates. Attention intensifies when correspondence from 2012 and 2013 enters circulation, and tone itself becomes scrutinized. Messages attributed to Elon Musk reference travel logistics to Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean property, including a question about which evening might host the most energetic gathering. In 2025, Musk publicly states he declined invitations and never attended events there. The timestamps, however, anchor the exchange in a post-2008 context. A 2013 note attributed to Richard Branson invites Epstein to a private island and includes jocular phrasing about guests. Separate correspondence describes film producer Steve Tisch asking whether a woman was a pro or civilian, followed by a clarification about whether she was a working girl, to which Epstein reportedly responded never. The language reads informal and transactional, absent the caution one might expect after a prior conviction. Representatives for those mentioned emphasize limited contact, business context, or regret over association. Yet the exchanges reflect continued communication, dinner plans, introductions, property visits, well after Epstein's 2008 plea agreement. The optics shift from distant acquaintance to documented familiarity. The legislative dimension sharpens the debate. On July 15, 2025, Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie introduced the Epstein Files Transparency Act. By November 18th, Congress passes it. The president signs it the following day. Shortly before the vote, Donald Trump urges House Republicans to